Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director. I want to thank you, first of all, for your assistance last year for the floods in Rhode Island. I was repeatedly stopped by my constituents who went out of their way to commend FEMA for their efforts and for the not just doing the job, but going above and beyond. So thank you for that. I think that ethic begins at the top. So thank you very much. Well done. A lot has been discussed today, I presume and know, about mapping. Your risk map program is designed to ensure by 2014 that the goal 80% of the nation's flood hazards data are new, updated, or deemed valid. My sources indicate we're about at 55% at the end of 2012. So how do we in 2 years go from 55 to 80%, particularly with constrained budgets?
Senator, we're not.
Okay.
Be honest, in looking at where we're having to make targeted reductions in our budget, we have looked at reducing funding for map modernization, but we are not stopping map modernization, but it will take longer to complete the work.
And how does that play out now when, for example, my colleague Senator Schumer was talking about issues in his part of the country? We have areas which are not in flood zones, and then some that should be, et cetera. How does that play out on the ground when you, like today, as floods rage through the country? I would think that the maps would be sort of the first place you would want to, the first priority, because from then you can decide who must have insurance, who should not have insurance. And right now, that is all based upon, in many cases, a lot of 35-year-old data from the geodetic survey.
Again, Senator, it is not an easy choice, nor is it a preferable choice. I think that the best data we have, and again, part of this has been oftentimes challenges to the data we have produced, having to go back and validate that, and oftentimes restudy at the request because data, the outcomes were not what people thought it should be. And so that increases the cost. But I do agree, the best way to start is always to know what your risks are and to have accurate maps, not only for the purposes of insurance, but more importantly for zoning and development, so we can make better and wiser choices that we build in places that have the least amount of risk, and we mitigate against the risk where we know the hazards.
Has there been any discussion or thought about trying to develop a joint enterprise to do this with the private sector, with state governments, with county governments, who I would think also have a vested interest in starting with good data, not writing policies on data they know is wrong?
We do that, and speaking from my experiences in 2 cases where I know this was done successfully, one was in North Carolina in the aftermath of Hurricane Floyd, where they actually were able to utilize mitigation dollars from FEMA in the aftermath of the disaster to produce very high-resolution flood maps. My experiences in Florida, where we were mapping coastal communities to get higher resolution maps for storm surge and then applying that for future map development. But I think you point out a key issue. Much of what we're doing is establishing what are the digital elevation maps. There is a significant economic advantage as we build, whether it's flood insurance, whether it's highway, whether it's water management districts, it's state or local programs, to be able to integrate all of this digital elevation data into a national atlas. Not only does it provide us the tools for flood insurance, it is a significant economic tool to have the best available data for people planning and looking at future growth, construction, all the way through to agriculture. So I'm firmly committed that as we do this mapping, the baseline data, as much as we can either leverage what other people have done or we can fill in gaps. So we're working more with the interagency of the federal programs to make sure that we are identifying where we're doing mapping, other people are doing similar work, and making sure we can maximize our investment.
Yeah, again, final point on this, and I agree, these are very difficult judgments that you're making, is that, you know, you've been given this responsibility and you're providing a general good, a social good that lots of other people depend upon, and if they could be encouraged, and in fact could see the wisdom that they could, it would make sense for them to participate to help us, and just not just localities and states, but private entities. And with technology today, the ability to map things from the sky and to do it quite accurately and to, you know, I think that might be an approach that would take some of the burden off of you, which you've had to historically. But once again, let me conclude by thank you for the great effort last year in Rhode Island.
Thanks, Senator.